Coming to the stage for the front of the room is Suzanne Nadell.
Hello, hello, hello.
Suzanne, come on now. She didn't
Hello. So we have been talking about owning it and getting out there and owning it. But one thing we haven't talked about is how much that adds to our plates and the pressure, right? And you know, we all came off and we've all had our moments of when the pressure was too much. Mine was December 2021. I was reclaiming Christmas that summer. Like, you know, I just moved the December before. COVID, we know what that did to 2020. 2021, Christmas was mine again. And the week before, when we were slim staffed because everyone was traveling, I get a call from my two anchors. They were exposed to COVID, and I didn't know who was going to do the news at WSB TV. I had a moment, like breakdown, that Christmas break, that Christmas that I was reclaiming, I had had enough. Like the pressure-filled Suzanne was crumbling. We've all had those moments. Well, we're going to talk about today, all of y'all are ladies like who will go out and get it. And I'm not going to tell you any like breakthrough thing you haven't heard before. But I do think whenever we're talking about going out and getting it, we've got to remind ourselves of these things. Because if we don't watch for these things, we'll crumble and we'll backslide from everything that we've talked about, right? So we need to make sure about we're dealing with the pressure is on. So who am I? I am Suzanne Nadell. I say I am a wife, mom, and TV news boss. My passion is empowering women to use their God-given talents while juggling faith, family, and career. So that is what I talk to women about, and we'll talk about my book and other projects as we go through. So what I want you to do, I did pass around some notepads. In the essence of time, we're not going to spend as much time if I were doing a full hour-long thing, but write down everything that's on your plate. And you're not going to have time. Yeah, you don't have room or time, but you get the point, ladies. We got a lot, right? Okay. Now here's the other thing that I want you to think about. Of all of those things, what do you really have to do? What do you really have to do versus what we think we have to do? And why is it that we think we have to do so much? It's because we think if we don't do something, we get this feeling of shame, right? We're ladies, so we all love Brene Brown. I love this Brene Brown quote, a self-held expectation that we need to do it all and do it all well. Shame is the most powerful master emotion. It's the fear we're not good enough. The fear that we're not good enough. Sarah J. Gibson wrote this in her blog, when we don't do it all, we believe we have failed, and then shame swallows us into the abyss of unworthiness. Here's another one that I like from Dr. Bo Nelson. Talks about tying it into social media and why that feeling of shame has even gone more. Women's vulnerability to perfectionism as a result of social media and its messages cannot be explained by just one thing. While the pressure to be perfect certainly can stem from social media, this relationship is also part of a larger context that includes gender roles, work-life balance, conflicting obligations, as well as managing stress, body issues, and social norms. He goes on to say, women tend to face the brunt of it more so than men because being relational by nature, they want to take care of everybody. And at the end of the day, they end up coming back to the well themselves only to find it dry.
Yes.
Is your well dry?
Yeah.
Has it been dry? Yeah. We all know what that's like. So if you want to keep your well from running, and let's be real, there are going to be times where we hit exhaustion. We got to take care of that. But if you want to keep your well from running real dry, I believe it starts with knowing your purpose. And based on your belief systems, you could have a different view on what it is, how you find your purpose, all of those things. You could go with coaches, you can get spiritual mentors, you could do a lot of things on finding out your purpose and what that means to you. But I do believe it is key to finding your purpose and having reminders to what your purpose is every day. So on my desk in the newsroom, well, in the office next to the newsroom, I'm the one like in the glass fishbowl, like, you know, they're paying attention to like who's in my office at all times and what I'm doing. But on there, if anyone looks through, you'll see some Post-it notes. And I have these 4 Post-it notes on my monitor. Trust, reminding me to trust that voice and trust others. Trust myself, trust, it was my word of the year a few years ago. Listen to all of those things, including others again. a reminder to me to be a presence of peace to others in a crazy world. And then this quote that I stole from somewhere and I have no idea and I feel bad I can't credit the person, but it keeps me going. It doesn't matter what my day looks like. What matters is I'm where I'm supposed to be. You see, ladies, when we keep all of this in mind and that quote in mind, we can live boldly. And living boldly makes all of the difference. So, how do you figure out your purpose? How do you live boldly? I believe the number one thing that has helped me and what I encourage you all to do is really think about what your values are. So if you haven't done that with anyone yet, you are launching your business or you're trying to stay on track, what are your values? We talked about that even with marketing. They should come through marketing. I did the work a couple of years ago. Here are mine. Growth, I love to grow things. I love to achieve things. If you're into the Enneagram, I am a 3 to the extreme. Strength finder, competition, number 1. I won't even play if I don't think I'll win. That's what it said about me. Valuing people, hard work, justice. You know, working through my coach on some things, of course I'm in news, so you think justice, voice of the voiceless, journalism, true journalism, big J, that aligns. But we were talking about things I was struggling with. And she's like, you know why you're struggling with that situation? Because to you it's been a lack of justice. So like justice goes through all aspects of my life. Clarity, I love clarity, laughter, trust. Once you do that work, and we talked about how that could even help you in marketing and everything today, then you can come up with what's your line? Why do you exist? So I exist to inspire, energize, and wow leaders by identifying potential, envisioning purpose, and driving achievement with joy and laughter. Now, I believe when you come up with that why statement, that can go in all aspects of your life. I mean, I could do that when I teach Sunday school. I could do that with my son and his friends. I could do that at work. I could do that with other women. If that's my true why I exist, it permeates in all my life. I'm not one who believes in this is my work life and this is my home. Like, I'm me wherever I am, and it all goes into one thing together. So let's talk about what may hold you up. The signs we talked about when your well does run dry. Even when you find those things, how do you spot those cycles? How do you see that something is off? So think about it. What are the signs for you that something's off? Frustration?
I get snappy.
Snappy? I get snappy too, yes. Energy level? Motivated? Demotivated? Yeah. I play victim. My coach called me out on that. Nobody had ever said it to me before. 3 days. I was like, whoa, I must have been having some real talks. But that's helped me since she spotted that, because if I'm sitting at my stoplight and I'm thinking all the managers beneath me, if they would only do it, I wouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't. I'm like, oh, I need a day off. You know what I mean? I need a day off. So, we call those our stress behaviors, our stress indicators. For me, poor health. So part of what, I sent you the old bio, I am also a 2-time cancer survivor and a BRCA2 gene mutation carrier. In my mid-30s, I had Hodgkin's lymphoma. In my early 40s, I had breast cancer. I have had chemo twice, radiation twice, double mastectomy. If I don't need it, I probably don't have it anymore. But because I have gone through all of that, there are some health things I have to watch. And if I start, my neuropathy from all the chemo will go off the charts if my body is fatigued. So I know for me, I'm really stressed if I start seeing health signs. We talked about snappy, how I react to people, how they react to me. This is why it's important to surround your inner circle and the people who work with you with people you trust. Like when one of my managers who reports to me comes and says, Suzanne, you're going on vacation. I hope you really get some unplugged time. You know what I mean? That's their nice way of saying, get out. Yes, get out. A lack of boundaries for me.
Yes.
I know the boundaries intellectually, and we'll talk about boundaries here. The intellectual knowledge about boundaries really starts to fade when I am fatigued. So let's talk about boundaries. And depending on your background, I think women as a whole, we have boundary things. If you grew up in, I think, some certain circles, it's even worse because we've confused loving others and boundaries and what all that means, and we have trouble with it. The book Boundaries, John Townsend and Henry Cloud, I think it's just a great
book.
Basic book. We were created to take responsibility for certain tasks. Part of taking responsibility or ownership is knowing what our job is and what it isn't. Workers who continually take on duties that aren't theirs will eventually burn out. It takes wisdom to know what we should be doing and what we shouldn't. Wisdom. What I love about these two authors is these are Christian-based authors, so for those of those who confuse the loving others and boundaries, they have a whole book that challenges that and how it's truly loving others to create boundaries. So for anybody who struggles, I highly recommend that. This is kind of what it goes to it, and especially if you are a leader and it comes to bringing people up. And this was my biggest fault as a young leader especially. I still struggle with thinking I can make every C player an A player. I can bring it out. I mean, my persuasion scores are also very high. And I'm like, I can get them on board and I can do it and I can make that C player an A player. You know, I can pour my soul into someone. I can lead them to water. I can treat them right. But at the end of the day, ladies, we're not responsible for them. It's up to them. And that's a basic boundary. That's for our kids, that's for our spouses, that's for our workers, that's for everyone. We're not responsible for them. We're not responsible for their success. So we've talked about that lack of boundaries that may seep in, those signs, but what do you do when you spot them? You know, our Instagram feeds and everything, they're full of everything you should do to replenish. But is that really what replenishes you? Have you sat down to think of what your replenishment cycle is? What feeds you? Guys, I run WSB TV in Atlanta, the #1 local news team in the country. You all know what the news was Monday night. I've had a very long week, and I have a couple of very long weeks ahead. Yeah. This is my second speaking engagement in 24 hours, and some people will be like, Suzanne, aren't you exhausted? No, because this actually feeds into my replenishment cycle. Like it's part of my value, it's part of what feeds me. This is replenishing more than me sitting in HGTV on my couch right now. Like this will keep me going next week more than other things would. So think about, like for mine, I had to think about what is it that gives you that spark and that pep in your step. For me, speaking and writing. Weekends with my girlfriends, writing on my own. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see I go to a farm outside of my mom and dad's. When I visit my mom and dad, I don't stay with them. I instead rent a 100-year-old farmhouse, and I send my child to them while I stay back and write. And then we have dinner together. It works well. It works well. So I do say this in figuring that out, because everyone's replenishment cycle is not yours. Explain it to those around you, especially when you're building a business or doing any of those things. Explain the importance of why it is. I'm not shutting you out, but if you want me to be the best daughter I can be, this is an important time for me. You know, it's for my staff, it was very important, because right now, you would probably think I'm an extreme extrovert. I'm not. So people who see this or who work for me think that something's wrong if I'm in my office with the door closed for an hour, when in reality, I need that door closed for an hour. So explain the importance, and then help others do the same. Especially if you're a leader, especially if you're a business leader, especially if you're bringing up, you set the tone. And if you don't do it for yourself, they're not going to do it themselves either. So you set the tone. Work zone. How many of y'all work from home? Book Leader, the leader I want to be. I love this, and especially for working moms. Set up work zones in your house. During the pandemic, I had worse work-life balance. I was running a newsroom from my house. You know what I mean? And my son was hearing everything. And my Atlanta commute time was now starting work earlier, and my husband bringing food up to me every evening. And I was just moving my laptop wherever I wanted to be. Work zones help those boundaries in your house. So you only work in your office, or you only work in your office and wherever. No phones allowed in other places. Set up work zones to help keep those boundaries and to keep yourself and your family refreshed. And then we've talked about it. I don't think I need to spend much more time on this one. Ladies, that need to be perfect. We don't need to be perfect. We don't need to be perfect. We're not. The people pleasing. We don't. That's the root of so many things. So I just say, get help. Get help. If you have the financial means, pay for help. Do you know why men are able to juggle so much? They paid people. No man has had to explain why he pays someone to change the oil in the car, so why should you have to explain why you're paying someone to clean your toilet? You know, so get help. Here's my favorite thing to get help. I call them twofers. In the TV newsroom, we call twofers if you're doing 2 stories in one day. I call twofers get 2 things done at once. So I need to exercise. My husband's love language is quality time. The last thing I want to do is to just sit and like talk forever after a long day, but I know I need to exercise. What's the twofer? I make sure I take a walk with him 3 times a week. That long walk, I exercise, and he gets his quality time. Bonus. So, look for twofers in life as we're juggling everything, and find those twofers to get it all. Help each other, ladies. Just be vulnerable. We're not going to break these cycles unless enough women get together and continuously break the cycles. It's up to us to break the cycles. Some days are for work. Remember, some days are for work. Again, I'm not a work-life balance person. There are some Saturdays I'm going to have to work. I work in news. There are some Wednesdays I'm going to take off. Some days are for work. Other days are for rest. Realize that when we're seeing each other. But just remember, more than anything, cheer each other on and be a friend. Be that leader to other women that you wish you had, because women need leaders who are like them, right? Yes. We need us. We need us. So cheer each other on, because the pressure is always on. It's never going to go away. Sorry. Hate to break it to you. Know your purpose, set your boundaries, support yourself with others who support you. Think about one thing you're going to do over the next week to deal with that pressure. Work zones? Twofers? People like the twofers. Yeah. Get my steps in, and I get to have slow conversation. We recorded this, yay. Remember, pressure comes from within, so it must be mastered from within. We're the ones who are putting it on ourselves at the end of the day.